Hello everyone, this is Robin the Delta Crafter, and today I'm going to be sharing with you how to take your dies and make stencils. The cards I'm sharing with you today I've made with the January 2021 My Monthly Hero Kit from Hero Arts. This kit has a bee theme and it is absolutely gorgeous. Unfortunately, at this time, the kit is sold out. It's sold out really, really quickly, which is not a surprise to me because it is absolutely gorgeous. The kit comes with a big 6x8 stamp set, and you can see it here on the screen. And included in this stamp set is this very large floral image, which I'm excited to use one day soon on some cards. But for today, I'm going to be using the bees, which are some fat, chubby bees on my card, as well as some of the sentiments that are punny sentiments, mostly using the word bee. I'm also going to be using, of course, the dies that are included in the kit, specifically the honeycomb die. So right now I'm showing you the die that cuts out the large floral stamp that's in the kit. And then here is the honeycomb die. So this is the die that I'm going to be using in this card, in these cards that I'm showing you today. These are the dies for the fat chubby bees. One of the things that makes this die in particular great for making a stencil is that it is a repeating geometric shape. And you'll see a little bit later on why that is important and how it comes into play. So off camera, I went ahead and ran the die through my die cutting machine on some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 80-pound cardstock. So I didn't even have to use a very extremely thick cardstock or heavyweight cardstock. 80-pound cardstock suffice for this method. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically use this cutout as a stencil. So you can see here I'm laying this stencil on top of a card panel that is an A2 card panel, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm going to use a piece of washi tape to tape the two cards together. So it's going to be like a hinge. I'm going to make a hinge for the two cards. And once I do that, then I've pretty much adhered and secured my top panel, which is going to be my stencil, to my back panel. I'm using regular distress inks for this ink blending today. I did not use oxides. I decided to use regular distress inks because I wanted my colors to be pretty vibrant. You can see there I'm using squeezed lemonade, mustard seed, wild honey, and I'm going to finish up with vintage photo. To make sure that I like the blending of the colors, because I'm going for a honeycomb look, I went ahead and did a test strip where I blended the colors together, and I could not have been happier with the way these colors blended together. This is pure perfection to me. And it's going to, you'll see in just a minute when we start making the panel, how these colors really develop together and give a true honeycomb and honey appearance on the panel. So I'm going to be using my blender brushes from Tailored Expressions. I'll link those below if you want to check them out. And so I'm going direct to paper, starting in the very middle of this stencil. And I'm also going with a very, very light hand because I don't want any brush marks or harsh marks to show up on my blending. So I've sped the video up just a tad bit just to make sure that we get to show the various different types of blending of the colors. So I'm again going back into the middle with that squeezed lemonade, and I'm building up my color again using a light hand because I kind of want my color to deepen as I move to the edges. So see there, if I pull the panel back, you can see where we're going with this ink blending. So I'm finished with the squeezed lemonade for now, and so now I'm going to come in with mustard seed. And because they're both in the yellow family, I can stick with my same blending brush and not have to switch out or clean it or do anything with that. So now I'm heading to the outside of the stencil and just darkening the edges where the hexagon shapes or the honeycomb shapes are located on my stencil. So I'm just going in and darkening those hexagons or those honeycombs just to give a little bit more depth and dimension and to build up my gradation between my colors. Going in there. And I'm still using a light hand with my blending brush as well. I find when I use a lighter hand, then I have more control and I'm able to build up my color. So there you can see a little bit or the beginnings of the gradation of the honeycombs. So here's where the magic begins and where the fact that this particular stencil is geometric shape in the hexagons. So I took the stencil off of the panel, and because it's a repeating shape, I can rearrange my stencil any way that I want to on my panel by overlapping and lining up the stencil with the images that have already been inked on the card. So you can see there my stencil is covering up the white spaces as if it was already laying in that position. But because I've moved it, I'm able to reach other parts of my panel and be able to color in and add additional color on the other parts of the panel. So now I'm coming in with the wild honey, and this is where the magic is going to start to be really be evident in my ink blending. So I'm coming in with the wild honey, and I'm going around the honeycomb, and I'm just darkening it up, darkening those hexagons up with the wild honey. And I'm even going to color in some of that blank space. And there you can see the beginnings of the ombre effect or the gradation of the colors. And when I lifted that that stencil up that time and saw how things were coming together, I was giddy. I could not have imagined that was going to turn out that beautiful. It was very pleasing. I was very happy with the way this card was coming together. Now, one thing I do want to say, you can see on the edge there underneath my left hand where I kind of went off the edge of the stencil with my inking, and so it kind of created a harsh line on the panel. I'm able to cover that up as I continue to ink blend, but just be mindful that if I was to make this card again, I'd be more mindful of that so that I didn't create those harsh lines and then create something that I have to end up covering up and working with. And see, I did it there on that side as well. But no worries, I was able to cover it up, but there's no need to create problems, when we're card making or when we're paper crafting at all. So if we can avoid that by just being a little bit more mindful, then that helps us out tremendously. So now I'm deciding that I don't want that much of the wild honey, so I'm going back in with the mustard seed. So I've kind of sped up the video, gone through, and now I'm getting to the point where I'm really getting to the edges of the card, and I'm just about finished with this panel. So here we are with pretty much all that I'm going to do with the stencil. You can see the stencil is pretty inked up, but look at that panel. Oh my goodness, that thing is gorgeous. It really does look like honey. I used the picture on the backer of the of the stamps as my inspiration, and I felt like this came pretty close to what that panel looked like. So now, just to take it a little bit further and create a little bit more dimension and depth, I'm going around the edges with the vintage photo and just darkening up the edges of the panel to make sure that everything is covered, and just kind of, when you darken the edges like this, it kind of draws your eye into the center of the card. So that's also part of the reason why I'm doing this, just to create a little bit more visual effect and appeal by adding that vintage photo, that dark brown, to the edges of the card. And there you have it. Our panel is completed. I really, really like it. Even the white parts kind of seem to glow a little bit on that panel. So now, in order to color my bumblebees, those fat chubby bees, I am using some alcohol markers. I have the Spectrum Noir markers, and so I'm using I think it is CT1, CT2, and CT4. I'm using these alcohol markers to color the bumblebees in, because I do want to give a little bit of shading and texture to the bumblebees. So I've started out with CT1, my lightest yellow, and I've colored the entire body, or the bodies of all the bumblebees, of the honeybees. And now I'm following up with CT2. And CT2 is just a little bit darker, and I'm just hitting a small portion of the bumblebee's body with that darker color, just to add, again, some variation and some texture to the body of the bees. CT4 is where I think the body of the bumblebees really came to life. The shading really kicked it up a notch because it's just a little bit darker, and was able to just add that finishing touch. So I came back in with CT1 just a little bit to make sure that everything was blended well and the bumblebee bodies were done. I wanted to add just a faintest hint of a light pale blue to the wings, just to give them a little bit of a translucent feel. So I came in with TB1 and applied just a few flicks of that. And then I use my blending tool to go ahead and blend out the TB1, just to make sure that so it didn't look streaky, like streaky lines. Because these are insect wings, and a lot of insect wings are, like I said, translucent and see-through, I decided to add some Spectrum Noir shimmer, clear shimmer pen to the bumblebee wings, to add a little bit of that see-through kind of look, that translucent look. So now I'm coming in with the sparkle pen and just going over the inking, or the alcohol ink that I laid down earlier, and it really, really takes the wings up quite a few notches. And I was very happy with the way the wings looked at the end. So while the camera doesn't pick it up that well, the wings do have quite a bit of shimmer on them. And I ended up going back and adding a second layer of shimmer so that they could really pop. So now that we're done with everything, off camera, I went ahead and cut out the bees, as well as stamped and heat embossed a sentiment. It is the You're Beautiful, Your Bee-utiful sentiment. So I went and also trimmed down my panel to 4 by 5 1/4. So I like it. I like for my cards to have a little bit of a contrast with that white border on there. Excuse me. So now it's time to assemble the card. So the first thing I'm doing is figuring out where I want my sentiment to be. And in order to give some more dimension, I'm deciding to pop up my sentiments and my bees, as a matter of fact. So you'll see me adding some pop dots to the bumblebees once I figure out the placement for everything. So once I get my placement figured out, which is what I'm kind of playing around with right here, I add the foam tape and pop dots in order to get my dimension. Whenever I have something that I'm using foam squares or pop dots or anything like that on, I like to use my tweezers to to manipulate them. Hands are wonderful, but they can be kind of fat and in the way. So tweezers give you that flexibility to kind of see where things are going to go without the obstruction of your hands. So now I have all 3 bees in place, and I'm just finishing up the card by adding the sentiment. And with that, the card is complete. This card, because of the fabulous kit that was created by Hero Arts, is one of my most favorite cards I've ever created. I just really loved the way this came together. So before I made this card, I made that first card, the card on the left, as my kind of my guinea pig card, where I was testing out exactly how I wanted to bring this together. So here are the 2 finished and completed cards. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, I would love it if you would hit the subscribe button and join the Delta Crafter family. You can find more information on this card and many other crafts on my blog, thedeltacrafter.com, and you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. I hope you guys have a great day. Enjoy. Bye-bye.